all of a sudden he starts making out with this traffic cone. And he starts calling it his girlfriend's name, okay?
Oh.
Let's call her Samantha.
He was quite impaired.
He starts making out like Samantha, yum, 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 Samantha. Like,
It's the Scott and Alley Not for Air podcast. The rules are gone. The shirt is untucked. Here's Scott and Alley.
This seems like a good place to start the Scott and Alley Not for Air podcast. So Hannah Rena, who is our attorney for the show, not that the show does so much damaging stuff that we need to have an attorney. Really, we just want someone with more knowledge than the sea of misinformation that we have. And then you and Allie were just talking about the fact. Now, Hannah, you just had a pool put in at your house. You have a house, right?
yes.
And Allie has a pool.
Actually, her apartment.
Yes, you bought a pool for the whole apartment. Look at you. And you've got family in from out of town, and I guess they got off the plane and they were ready to party right away, huh?
Ready to party. 10 o'clock. They were ready to go, opening the beer at the pool. Pool's not even done yet. I mean, there's rocks all over. We don't have the pavers set, but they don't care.
They don't care.
They're ready to party.
Stubbing
So is the
toes all the way.
They're from Florida, so they're ready to party.
Yeah.
Is the water in the hole?
There's water.
Then that's all they need.
And that's where Allie said you lose all willpower in a pool setting.
Oh
huh?
my gosh, all of it. And I'm like, wait, make sure at least like I'm good enough that I will reapply the sunscreen, and then we're golden.
Oh, that's funny.
Okay,
all right.
so-
Well, let's do this. So first of all, Hannah Rena, who is locally an attorney, and you are a defense attorney locally here in the Twin Tiers, and we're glad to have you. And we got to meet you. And for those that don't know, because we can spend a few more seconds talking about it, we got to meet you here at the station one day, and we're like, wow, she is a lot of fun. And then you came in and talked to us a little bit. Oh, it's been a little over a week or so now about the Diddy case. Now, you had even said that was a federal case and a lot of things are different, but you still know more about the legal process than we do. I mean, we're all, speculation and we think it should go this way, but things happen. You
I
know?
also want to say that when you were on, I had a girlfriend who texted and she said, has she been in the courtroom? Because she sounds like she really knows what she's talking about. And I'm wondering if she has the inside scoop to Diddy. And I'm like, oh, no. This is just legalese.
Years of experience.
Yeah.
I've been in a courtroom, but not the Diddy courtroom.
Not the Diddy
Yeah.
courtroom. Now, I want to come to that for 1 second because at the time we're recording the podcast, which in full transparency to folks, it's right before the 4th of July. And yesterday would have been the day that the verdicts came down. Allie was a sea of sadness.
Disappointment?
Yes.
Yeah.
And she wanted him to go away for life, everything gone, lock him up, shackles, electric chair, the whole thing. And it turned out, so you were right. You said, what was the term you used about how a lot of times these verdicts come down?
Split the baby.
Split the baby.
What's that mean?
So basically, if you have several charges and the jury doesn't want to convict on the highest charge, they'll convict on a lower charge, and they just call it splitting the baby. So,
And that's what happened. So racketeering, no. And you had even told us on the show, that's a tough one because there's so many elements and layers. Like originally, this interested me because you had said that they used to use this on mobsters and stuff like that. Like this was, the way that they would break down their organizations and that. And in the case for Diddy, there wasn't enough there.
I'm glad that you came on the show and told me that because I feel like it lessened the blow for me because I was all in. And once you had broken it down, I was like, all right.
Now, the other ones, the sex trafficking, that is also not guilty. But then the, what was it, transportation for prostitution or
Yes.
something? How is that different from sex trafficking?
So the transportation is basically he was accused.
Get in my van. Sorry.
Basically transporting people across state lines for prostitution, so paying them for sexual services. So that's
how is it where all of a sudden now hear me out. You're a defense attorney, so hear this theory out. Okay, so we're 5 miles away from the border of Pennsylvania, technically cross state lines. Some guy's talking to a girl and he says, hey, I'll take you out to dinner and, in a movie or whatever. And then they end up doing it and she doesn't want anything more to do with them anymore. How is this all different? Like, these people got in a car and either drove themselves up to do whatever. I mean, how is that still well, it is. I mean, I guess that would be the sex trafficking or the prostitution.
I mean, dinner in a movie is a little different than
Yeah.
paying someone flat out for sex.
is it?
I mean,
Wait, how is a date become prostitution?
Right.
Also, I think, and now I wasn't in the courtroom, but wouldn't there be text messages, Hannah, that say that there was an exchange of money? Or is it like my Venmo transactions? What?
it was a series of things. It appears there were text messages, there were receipts, there were things like that. And
Well, that's the mistake. You don't need a damn receipt for a hooker. I mean, that's the problem right there.
Times are changing, Scott.
Let me tell you,
Well, they're
your
expensive.
bookkeeper would love that around tax time. Hey, listen, I see about $3,000 here. Oh, that was my hookers.
So now that we're not surprised by the racketeering, even the whole splitting the baby, you freaking called it. Was there anything else about the P. Diddy thing that might give us a little insight before we move on to some of the cases that you've actually put your hands on?
Tell Allie what you told me before we started, before she came in the room about him being behind bars.
So I thought it was interesting. I mean, depending on the law, again, I'm not very familiar with the federal laws that he's been prosecuted with, but I was surprised that they didn't release him. So sometimes they will release someone, especially if the judge is not going to be pursuing a lengthy prison sentence. Here they didn't, and again, I'm not sure if there were certain rules that wouldn't allow his release, but I just thought that was surprising because sometimes people will be released pending sentencing.
Now, sentencing is in October. Is it possible they could look at it because he's been in since last October?
Yeah, I think you're right, somewhere around there.
Let's say it's a year by the time they get to it. Could they say time served? Because right now the prosecution says we're going all in. Both these charges have a max of, is it 10 or 20?
I think it's 10 apiece, so then 20 total.
Yeah, so they say they're going to try to push for the max for this is the prostitution charges he got. Do you think he'll get the 20, or do you think it'll be time served, or do you think he'll go away for a while?
So I don't know what the minimum is that he's looking
Zero.
at.
It's
and
zero. Believe it or not, it's 0 to 20.
So federal, they have a little different sentencing as well, but obviously his defense team's going to ask for time served. Obviously, I mean, he's been in since last October or so. I mean, he'll have about a year in. He's getting credit now. The prosecution's obviously going to ask for the max because they didn't get the convictions on the other ones, so they're going to try and max him out on this one.
They're better.
I have no idea what the judge will do. I mean, this is a high-profile case, so
Yeah.
just to say time served might be tough for a judge to do. Or maybe they'll, based on the evidence and the facts, they may say, okay, you've done your time.
I don't even think it's bitter. I think it's, and I'm sure, Hannah, this is where I kind of want to transition. You want to win, right? You go in always wanting to win. And you know, whether you answer it or not, I wanted to tell you one thing. I read a book recently, actually listened to it on audio, and it was a true story. And the lawyer had said to the person who was up for a murder conviction, had said, don't lie to me because it's not about you anymore. I need to win. I want to win, so you need to tell me everything. So put your ego at the no ego amigo, you know? So wouldn't you say that's part of it when they're going for the 20? Isn't it about you winning?
For the prosecution, I think they're trying to ask for the maximum because they're going to find and make the argument that it's just. Whereas a defense attorney is going to argue that this is enough punishment for the crime that he was convicted of. So, sure, everybody wants to win. But I can't imagine a prosecutor's ever going to say, oh, I'm doing it because I want to win and I want to win. Or the defense attorney is going to say, well, I want to win. It's a lot of the times as a defense attorney, you want the just result for your client. So if you think that, you know, the time that's being offered is way too much, then you and your client will have that discussion. Or if your client didn't do it, then that's a discussion that you have to.
Now, interestingly enough, you've been on both sides of the fence on this. You've been a prosecuting attorney, and you are a defense attorney. Now, what some folks may not realize is your career actually started in Florida, and you were a prosecuting attorney, which means you were the one going after the bad guys. You were the one sitting there going, "I'm going to prove a case against you," as opposed to, well, you see what happened was. That's what I call the defense side of it. You see what happened was. So you've seen both sides of this.
Yes.
And the best part to this is it's in Florida. This brings on a Florida man in a heartbeat. As a prosecuting attorney, is there any that you can see, that you recall, that just stood out to you as, oh my God?
So Florida, I think it's the heat that makes everybody so wild.
Yes.
I mean, it's hot all the time. So here you get breaks in the criminal justice system. Winter, people don't leave much. There's not a high crime rate in the winter, and then summer it picks up.
Oh, so you and landscapers have the same schedule.
Pretty much. Yes, I'm so busy now. But in the winter, or excuse me, in Florida, it's hot all the time. So when I first started out, I moved to Fort Myers area, which I had never been to. I was on the East Coast for law school over in Fort Lauderdale. I moved there. My first week, my boss has a party, invites everybody over. So I show up to his house, and he's got like a tank top. It's way out in the woods, and he's got a deer tattoo on his arm. A deer tattoo. I never seen anything like it. So I was like, okay. I grew up in Syracuse, New York. I didn't really hang around people with deer tats. But
So
all
then
right.
you weren't exposed to Addison. I got you.
So after that, I go to court my first week as a prosecutor, and my first case is a deer in the backyard. Someone's having a deer as a pet, basically, and that's a misdemeanor in Florida. So I'm prosecuting someone who's keeping Bambi as their pet. And then the second case that week, they give me an undersized fish. So basically, if you go fishing in Florida and the fish is in a certain length, it's a misdemeanor in Florida because they don't want you taking the certain fish because they're not ready. I really don't know.
So
the
you've already
logistics.
covered 2 Disneys,
So,
Bambi and Nemo.
Right. So basically, my entire first week was prosecuting these like fish and deer, and finally, I was like, "Are there real cases here? What's happening?" But that's kind of how my Florida career started. I did a plethora of things. Some of the stories I can tell you. I mean, as a prosecutor,
Wait, hold on. I got to know who won in these cases.
All right, let's start with
Yeah, you
Bambi.
can-
Did you
yeah.
did you get the win on that?
I did. I mean,
So what do they do with the deer?
Yeah.
so they basically the
Dinner.
animal they take it and they kind of see if they can reintegrate it to the wild or
Okay.
not. I didn't really follow up with the deer, if we're being honest.
Give it to alligator
I wasn't
Alcatraz
sure
dinner,
what
yeah.
happened to them. The fish, obviously, it's dead. They just dispose of it. The judge was pretty upset that the fish was disposed of because then no one got to eat it and it was a waste.
Oh.
But those types of crimes, I mean, you get a fine, you get some costs, but
How very Ted Nugent of the judge.
Ted Nugent.
Yeah, for an older reference. For
Sure.
our younger listeners, he's an old classic rock guy who's big in the hunting. And he wants to make sure everything gets ate. Anyway.
Mildly conservative guy, if you didn't know.
Mildly.
All right, now moving
an
on to, you
understatement.
said it finally got better for you with some
So
of these.
yeah, finally got better. So then I started doing, DWIs, right? So
Okay.
I had a case that
Which, by the way, I have to say, very common in Florida. From all the stories we get, somehow alcohol's involved in a ton of shit down there.
Well, that's the warm weather.
it's the heat. I mean, honestly, you start drinking more in Florida than you do here. It's just something to do.
Oh, now hold on. I got to back up before you tell me about the DUI cases. So I lived in Florida. I lived in West Palm Beach in 93, 94. Did a year of radio down there. And now Buffalo kid originally, right? Moved around. I've moved around. But I remember that it was very like freewheeling with the alcohol. There were stands that, felt like they were just out in the open that you could go up and get drinks and stuff like that. It's like it wasn't hardcore designated bars. I mean, has that changed?
Oh, no, it hasn't changed.
Okay.
It's so easy. So anywhere you can have a cart, you can have on the water, you can have a boat serving alcohol. It's not like New York where there's all the rules and regulations.
Yeah.
You can sell alcohol basically anywhere.
You have to have a
and-
certain license, though, right?
Yeah, you have to have a license, but I mean,
Maybe.
yeah, there's people that don't, but you can basically sell alcohol with, a snow cone for
Yeah.
set. So then, you're selling the snow cone, you're giving the alcohol, stuff
Oh,
like that.
it's like the sticker store
Yeah,
thing in
so-
New York.
Yep.
Okay.
They do a lot of stuff like that, but you can buy alcohol at the stores, the grocery store, the convenience store, anywhere you want. I mean,
Easily accessible.
right.
Yes.
Not like New York where you have certain spots where you can buy wine, you can buy beer, you can buy liquor. It's a free-for-all there.
I got you. Okay. So
So
then,
do your DUIs. Yes.
So Fort Myers Beach was a really popular area. They had this place called the Lani Kai, which was wild, and they had all sorts of drinks flowing. People were always drinking there, and unfortunately, we're driving after and getting pulled over.
this is probably before the days of Uber, right?
Yeah, I mean, this was like 2010, 11, 12.
It was just coming to life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you're on the beach, you're having a good time. You don't want to leave your car, so people were, taking off. So there was this one case where this kid was really, really impaired. Really, really impaired. Shouldn't have been driving. Gets pulled over. He gets put in the back of the police car. He's got no shirt on because he's at the beach, right?
Right.
And he's got shorts on. So he's in the back of the police car, and there's a traffic cone. So the officer had a really small little area, and there's a traffic cone, and him, okay? And it's like you're really cramped in there. He wasn't a big kid, but he's cramped in there. All of a sudden, he starts making out with this traffic cone. And he starts calling it his girlfriend's name, okay?
Oh.
Let's call her Samantha.
He was quite
And
impaired.
He starts making out like Samantha, yum, 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 Samantha, like nonstop, right? And you think that's the worst of it. So, and this is all in the camera that we're watching, so you get the case as a prosecutor, you start to take a look, hey, is he impaired? Can I prove this case? And then you start watching the vehicle camera. And obviously the officer had no idea this was happening because he wasn't in the car.
Yeah.
So then after he has his little makeout sesh with his girlfriend, aka the cone, I guess he has to urinate. So he pulls down, he has swim shorts, pulls down the shorts and pulls out his,
Dong.
and starts peeing in the back of the police car. And then he gives it like a little shake, and it's kind of hard to see on the camera, but he gives it like a tiny little shake with his two little fingers, and then he puts it back in, and then he's just sits there again, and then he goes back to making out with the cone.
I'm going to bet this guy got proven that he was impaired.
He ended up fleeing. He ended up fleeing to the DWI.
Oh,
yeah, at
my
that
God.
point, how could you plea otherwise? This is what happened. Now, do you have, this is a weird way to phrase it, but because of this story is so great, do you have a favorite case?
Oh, a favorite case.
Maybe it was a favorite because it was challenging or it was funny. Like that
It
was
could
really
have
funny.
just been the utter absurdity of it.
Yeah.
So I had I would say there was a case that made me laugh. And again, I'm not laughing at the person, but I was laughing at the facts. So there was in Florida, I'm not sure about New York, but in Florida, the laundromats give you like shopping carts to put your laundry in and move them around.
We have those too. Yep.
Okay, so this girl and her boyfriend are there. They're doing their laundry. They're clearly on something. I don't know what it is, but they decide that they're going to take the shopping cart. So she gets in it.
Also a common experience in New York. Actually, the
Yes.
shopping cart from the store.
Yes.
It's
Camera.
amazing. Wegmans is 10 blocks that way, but I can get you a shopping cart
Yeah.
across the street.
So she wants a jury trial on this. She's claiming, innocence. Okay, so her and her attorney go to trial, but on the video, she's in the car and she's going, wee! as she gets pushed out of the store, and then she's seen in the parking lot with a cart. So obviously, if she would have returned the cart, they weren't going to do anything. They call her because they know who she is. About 16 hours later, they see her back on the camera, back in the cart, going woo down the street. Okay, so clearly they call the police, they prosecute her, and she's like, "Oh, I was going to return the cart." So that was what she told the jury, that she's going to return the cart. Needless to say, they found her guilty, that she didn't obviously return the cart.
What fine comes with that? I mean, there couldn't have
Well,
been
I mean,
jail
technically,
time.
it's a misdemeanor, so you could get up to a year in jail.
Oh,
You could
God.
get probation. I mean, you could get a combination work program where they go and make you in the Florida heat sit out there and pick trash up. I mean, it could be anything. It could be a plethora of things. So that was, I thought that was interesting.
All for the 30 seconds of fun.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I don't know. It seemed like it went on for hours.
yeah.
She came back later.
But if she wasn't even using anything like to bring anything home, it was just her, just taking a ride.
Have at it.
Another case I thought was funny is, again, another woman that went forward and wanted a jury trial, was that she was about to get arrested by the police, and somehow, they leave her alone for a second, and then they put her in the back, they do a search, they don't find anything. So she goes to the jail, and they make you take off your clothes, and you have to put their clothes on, and she's standing there, and she all of a sudden pops out a pill bottle out of her.
Hoo-ha. Yeah.
And the pill bottle, so there's photographs of it, and it's like all the labels just like disintegrated. Okay.
Oh, what is going on in
And
there?
there is a thing of pills in there. And so there's no cameras in that area, but the officer describes it as she just kind of looked around like it didn't come from her. And then they pick up the bottle. Obviously, she ended up getting
This
ready.
is why they wear gloves, by the way.
Right.
I just want to point that out.
So that was interesting. Just silly stuff, like just silly things that you think, how did that even happen?
All right, I got to ask this because you're in a courtroom, shockingly more than Allie and I. But
Thank goodness.
Have you ever had a judge just lose it cracking up at what this? I mean, I know they're very, they're honorable for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
But have you ever had one they're like, I gotta go to chambers, I can't.
I did actually. So when I was in Florida, I had a bench trial. So basically, someone can elect to not go in front of a jury, depending on the crime, and they can just do it in front of a judge. So the guy was a sovereign citizen. So he basically didn't.
Oh, they all are.
He didn't believe in, certain government
Thanks,
restrictions.
Donald.
Don't you watch those? Well, see, okay, my boyfriend watches the webcam stuff all the time. And every time they get busted without a license, they always go, I'm a sovereign citizen. And I'm like, okay.
When you say that, he was driving without a license.
There you go.
So we go forward with a bench trial. He's representing himself. They call it pro se. So he's
Also,
representing himself.
Of course.
Right. So
Don't put me in court.
again, not someone I'd pick on my jury. So I ended up going forward with a bench trial, and he is explaining he doesn't believe in the license. We go through all that. So then I ask him, what type of work you do? He says he's a personal trainer. I was like, okay, where do you do that? And it was like Gold's Gym or one of the gyms. I'm like, okay, how do you get paid? Well, they write me a check. Okay, well, what do you do with the check? Oh, it's I deposit in an account. I'm like, okay, so you use currency, right? Well, yeah. So then I start going in all these questions about how he's using money and this government, right? And then he finally goes, you got me. Slam dunk. And he goes like that, and the judge just about falls over. We all start laughing, including him. So he's laughing, I'm laughing, the judge is laughing, and then he's like, you got me. And I was just like, all right. And then, obviously the judge, I think he gave him like a fine or something.
Yeah.
But he could have been going to jail or
Sure,
probation.
sure.
But that was a good one where we all just are cracking up on the
my
record.
God, that's
Gotta
great.
be those days that make it worth it because, every day can't be murder and DUIs.
Yeah.
You gotta have something to
Oh,
break
no, every
it up.
day can have a DUI, especially
yeah.
in Florida. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they've got DUIs. I've seen a lawnmower.
We've seen these
Yeah.
stories, the riding mowers.
Yeah, no,
yes.
he was legitimate in Fort Myers riding his lawnmower. He was yelling at a few people as he was doing it, having his drinks, and no, he ended up going right on the road, and that was a no.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
They had a horse one. A woman in Polk County was on a horse, and anything that's on the highway in Florida, so it doesn't have to be motorized.
Well, now, wait a minute. Couldn't you argue? Now, hold on. We're going to switch from your prosecutor hat to your defense attorney hat. Technically, the horse is driving itself, is it not?
I mean, obviously.
You
You just happen to catch a ride.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you think there's your Uber. It's
Yeah,
a,
you're
it's
in the
a
back
Uber.
seat. You're in the back.
You had
Yeah.
a thumb out on the side. Like,
Yeah,
oh,
I mean,
yeah.
but seriously, the horse is the one. It's not like the horse has a steering wheel. Yeah, it kind of does with the reins, but still, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean,
I know.
you might have had a shot at that one.
I mean,
my
you see a
God.
lot of funny things. I had a case where, a guy was in a jury trial. He had a significant amount of drugs that was he was charged with, okay? They had a big drug press where it almost looks like a jack, and they kind of press whatever. They'll cut the drugs, and they kind of press them together into
Is
bricks.
that so they can stick him in the rectum?
No.
Damn near
it's-
killed him?
No, it's basically so they can make more money off of their product.
Oh.
So if you get a brick, you kind of cut it, and then you can have several different packages.
Okay, now I get
So
it.
make a long story short, he has his girlfriend testify, okay? So I get to cross her, and she's basically saying there's these little bags, okay? And they're these tiny little dime bags, they call them. And she's claiming she owns a hair business there, and that she had these little beads, and that's how she would give the beads and sell the beads. So the bags, though, she obviously never saw the bags. So the bags have naked ladies on them, okay?
Okay.
So they're little pictures of naked ladies. So I'm asking her, like, all right, so describe the bag, and she doesn't really kind of say it. I was like, well, so let me get this straight. You have naked lady bags that you give and sell beads to your customers who are women, and they're fine with these bags? And then she was just like, yeah. And you could tell,
Yeah,
like,
you see what
she
happened
hadn't seen the
was.
bags, but that was kind of funny because everyone's like, naked lady bags. And they did. They had these, like, little naked ladies on the bags, and obviously, they were used for
Drugs.
narcotics. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that you see a lot of crazy things.
Wait, I do have a question. Can I interrupt you on that
Yeah.
story? So with like narcotics and names and things like that, because something tells me that is not a world that you're in. Of course, it wouldn't be. So what happens, and especially with like now, there's so many different names that come up. Slang names, or even there might be a product like when I remember bath salts, which first I think
yeah.
came from Florida.
Oh, yeah.
When that first came about, I was like, what's a bath salt? We all were like, what is this? So
Which
are you-
originally a bath salt was used in a bathtub as, a way of, I don't know,
cleaning?
moisturizing.
Yeah,
who,
yeah.
Who knows?
So when it comes to that and something comes up in court, do you pause and have to look something up? Do you ask them what it is? Because you almost don't want to appear like you don't know, right? You want to seem like you have the most knowledge.
So I'm not in the drug game, but
Right,
I've
right.
been doing this a long time. So, but basically, when you're already at a trial, there really shouldn't be a ton of surprises. You should have already
Okay.
gone through everything. But a lot of the times as a prosecutor, you can ask law enforcement, what does ICE mean or what does this mean? And then they can kind of give you a
ICE
breakdown.
means you get to go to Ecuador. I mean, El Salvador. Sorry.
Got me on that one. But yeah, so you kind of ask law enforcement, or if you have a client, you can ask them, hey, this text message says this. What does that mean? Or what is this
Okay.
emoji? Like, I'm not very familiar with the emojis, okay?
Okay.
So I'll have to ask people now as a defense attorney, like, what is this emoji? Or what does this mean? Or what does that mean? And then, we kind of talk about things like that.
We have the same thing. We have a producer who's much younger. So sometimes there will be a string of emojis that we're like, oh, put together.
What is this?
What is this? And he's like, oh, yeah, that means, I'm going to go score some weed or whatever it is. So I can completely understand that. Now it makes sense about the not surprises in court. Because
Yeah.
if you have a surprise in court, that means not you, but whoever it is didn't do their job.
Did you
right?
ever get a good surprise in court
Well,
that
so
you can mention?
As a prosecutor, you have to disclose everything in Florida and in New York. So you don't get to keep any of it. So as a defense attorney, you get everything. You're supposed to, at least. So I mean, you shouldn't really have many surprises. But sure, surprises when people testify, you never know what people are going to
right.
say.
That's got to be. There's got to be something.
I mean, I had a case where the guy was charged with murdering someone, and there was a lot of video evidence and stuff. And then after that, I was prosecuting him. He ended up kidnapping his ex-wife. So there was, it was a sad situation. However, he testified at trial. And at trial, he was a really big guy, right? And at trial, he starts, I'm asking him some questions. I'm getting him agitated, obviously. And then all of a sudden, he starts, like, slamming on the desk, stands up, like, kind of almost, like, hulks out. And then the deputies, because he's in custody. Everyone's in custody in Florida. He's in custody. The deputies run over, and the jury sees all that. And, that is, like, it's wild. It's surprising. And
Right.
always, like, I always tell my clients now, if you can't behave yourself for 30 minutes on the stand, the jury's going to see that and then maybe think, hey, you actually did this. So I thought that was pretty surprising that he was in a homicide trial and a kidnapping trial and he just lost his
The
cool.
anger came
Yeah.
out.
And he was a big guy, so it was scary looking.
And he was found guilty, I assume?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did that scare you? That must have scared you, right?
It didn't scare me as much as, honestly, people are rarely upset with the prosecutors after a trial. A lot of times it's if you are a defense attorney, they're going to be upset because they think, maybe you didn't help them or something like that. But as a prosecutor, I got a few threats, but not many. As a defense attorney, I've gotten a few threats as well.
Wow.
But, I get it. People are stressed out. They're in a terrible situation. You feel like you have an elephant sitting on your chest because you have a criminal case pending, and sometimes people just don't behave in the best way.
Now, with that being said, because people can only see the top half of you. You are a bit smaller in stature. You're only what, 5'2", 5'3"?
Yeah, 5'2".
So what made you want to get into this? Because you have a really bold personality, but there must have been something that was like, yeah, this is what I want to do.
I always liked arguing as a kid. I just always
Wow,
liked
you were a
arguing.
blast, I'm sure, to raise.
Yeah, I was an only child. I ran my household. Like, I told my parents what's up, which, you're not supposed to. I never got grounded, and I would be like, oh, no, that mail, even though it's addressed to you, you can't open that because it says my name on it. Stuff like that. And so I started basically, like, I would not say bullying, but, arguing with my
Bullying your
parents as, when I was younger, and everyone was like, you're so good at arguing, you're so good at arguing. And then I started really enjoying criminal law. There's certain things I don't like fall asleep. Corporate law or tax law just makes me want to fall asleep. Someone explains it to me, I just kind of nod off. So I loved criminal law, and then I ended up doing political science in undergrad. I went to Lemoyne and Syracuse, and then I was like, I got to get away from the snow, so I booked it over to Florida, and then ended up going to law school.
Oh man! And now back in New York.
And
So
now back
I do
in New
want to
York.
say this too, because you're obviously talking about cases from Florida, also cases that anyone can Google these. You're not saying anything that cannot be found on the internet.
Well, yeah,
Right.
and you're not making fun of the people. Sometimes the situations are just the level of absurdity. That's why we get the Florida man stories that
Yeah.
come out.
But
Yeah.
I do want to take a moment just to say, like, you do practice in New York, and I know you deal with the DUIs and other things. But if somebody is interested, and this is where I'm just going to plug you right in the middle here, is that they should go to your website. They should go to, it's RennaLawOffice.com.
And that's RENNA, correct?
Yes.
Perfect. So yeah, they should look you up, because honestly, just by your demeanor, I'm like, I want you as my lawyer because I feel like you're relatable as opposed to like some old guy who's 92 and is going to be falling asleep while we're in the court. You know,
Well, I also feel like you're not going to just sit there and I mean, with a bold presence walking in, it's like, well, maybe because we're bold, we think this way. You know, I would think that they hear you coming up the courtroom hallway. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
oh,
I'm not making
Look out.
friends, let me tell you that. So, yeah, definitely. I mean, I like the personal touch. I answer my own phone. I like to have, you know, my clients' family members call me because, again, it's not only stressful to them, it's stressful to the whole family.
Yeah.
Everybody's
Yes.
involved. So I like having that personal touch. I like being able to talk to my clients. And obviously, I like being able to help people. And I've been competitive. I grew up and I was told winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. That's how my cousins trained me.
what a great line.
Winning
Jeez.
isn't everything, it's the only thing. So that's how I grew up. We played cards, board games, sports, you name
And you
it.
bullied the shit out of your parents. We're sorry. I
They
understand.
stopped playing with
Yeah.
me. But that's why I
It's
like.
weird because Uno became Dos, and your parents are like, "That's not how this works," but she wins.
I'm like, according
Yeah.
to the rules.
right.
Yeah.
Are you really a strict rule follower in life?
I mean, I would say probably for the most part.
Okay.
I mean,
You don't bend them.
I don't bend them, but I'm not like, I could never work, let's say, for the FBI because I've sped before or I've, done things like
shame.
that. So no, I'm not saying I'm like a perfect rule follower, but I like the rules, especially in the legal system. I
Yeah.
work within them, and sometimes they're helpful too.
Yeah.
Well, and you've been a help to us too, because like we said with the Diddy trial and how that was working out, we spent so much time theorizing, and it was like, oh, okay, we got somebody that can really kind of help us understand a little bit more. And that was pretty good. I gotta give you that. You were dead on with that.
One last thing about the reputation. You said I'm not making friends, but do you have like a reputation in the area that people will say like you're a bulldog or that you're just straightforward?
I've been called like a chihuahua because I'm so little. Yeah. I don't mind. Hey.
I love that.
Yeah. I mean, like a bulldog, but a littler version.
Yes.
Definitely. Yeah. A lot of people, I get a lot of good feedback, which is nice. Because I'm not afraid to speak the truth and go up. And if my client says something, I'll investigate it. And if, law enforcement, maybe didn't document evidence that should have been, I'll bring it up. I mean, I just have that duty to my clients.
Yeah.
So, but again, not making many friends, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I just want to help people.
Oh, for sure. Oh my gosh, this has been so much fun.
I love it.
I do.
Any parting Florida man stories, or have you?
So I can tell you that, again, the heat makes people wild.
Yeah.
And I had this case where this woman, so it's called FPL, Florida Power and Electric, basically knocked on her door and said, hey, listen, we need to shut your power off. We have to do some work on the lines. So she slams the door in their face. She's like, no, you're not shutting my power off. Okay, so they go up, they start working on the lines, they shut the power off. She comes out with a firearm and starts threatening them. Now, these guys are real relaxed. Like, they're on the power lines. They don't get really worked up. The 911 call, you hear them very calm, like, there's a woman who has pointed a firearm at me. Like, period, end of discussion. So she ends up obviously getting arrested and, just was so upset that they shut off her power. And these guys were up there. They testified, but they were very relaxed. So it could have been obviously a worse situation. But again, her argument was, I couldn't have the heat. I couldn't deal with the heat. So
Yeah.
it's the Florida heat.
Oh my gosh.
The craziness that comes out of it.
One last question.
yeah.
Would you ever go back to Florida just to keep it real exciting?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I still have a valid Florida license, so you never know. Right now, I'm going to stick it out here in New York for a little bit. But, yeah, I love Florida. I mean, there's never a shortage of crime in Florida, for sure.
Right. I feel
Apparently
like
not.
New York, though, either. Like New York, I feel like is a close second, especially in this area. You get some people who are a little backwoodsy, and you're going to get some crazy stories. I think the redneck thing really helps your advantage.
It'll be on its way.
Yeah.
Well, one more time, it's rentalaw.com.
Rent-a-law office.
I'm sorry, rentalawoffice.com. Is that right? Rent-a-law office or law?
It's Rent-A-Law office.
Rentalawoffice.com. Okay. Absolutely, if the need arises. I mean, obviously, it's, no one wants to sit there and think about, well, when I get my next DUI, I know who I'm calling.
But I think what it's great, too, is now that people have seen you and they feel like I was saying, oh, I feel like she would fight for me or that she can relate to me. Also, I'm going to tag your social media because you're on social media as well. So that way people can get a hold of you, whether they call you, because you said you like to talk to your clients
Definitely.
personally, whether they call you or if they just find you on social media first and follow you, and maybe just if they need you in the back pocket for whatever comes up. Because there's always a family who's like, oh, got to call my lawyer.
Yeah.
You know?
And you never know. I mean, even traffic stuff, you never know.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Do you
another
find
one.
that having, okay, I know this is a loaded question. You're going to want to automatically say yes to this. Do you find having an attorney for, say, traffic tickets, listen close, Allie, that is better when going in front of a judge? Like, let's say, I don't know, you were doing 75 and a 55 or 45. You know, is there hope? You know, I mean...
So I think it depends on what you're charged with. If it's a speeding or anything with points on your license, I always say you need an attorney because you're not going to know what to ask for, what points you're getting, how that's going to affect your license, your insurance, all of that. If it's something simple that you can get a non-moving violation, I may even tell someone if they call me, hey, just ask for this. If you can't get it, call me back.
Okay, now that's good to know.
Nice.
Now here's another great example with that is I've heard most decisions are made in chambers.
With what?
Any decision for court. Like, and what I mean by that is, like you said, you can ask for certain things. Like a lot of times you'll go to court for traffic stuff, not DUI level, but I'm saying, you know, speeding or, you know, whatever the you know, charge might be for whatever, that you sometimes can talk to the DA before you go into the courtroom and do that. That's one example that I would say most decisions seem to be made in chambers but I've also heard that a lot of deciding happens between the attorneys and the judges, maybe not even in the courtroom. Is there truth to that?
So it depends. You know, for felony cases or misdemeanors, when you file motions, the defense files motions. They're called omnibus motions or legal motions. And then the district attorney's office responds, and then the judge decides. So the judge decides that in chambers without any of us.
Okay.
We'll have court conferences here and there, but a lot of the decisions are made by the judge by himself or herself.
Do you ever, I would say, mingle with any other lawyers or judges outside of the courtroom? Do you guys have kind of
Is there
like
a circle?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I don't know about a circle, but it's a small area here.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, even you can go somewhere and bump into people. But I did put together, I run a kickball team, actually, a co-ed kickball team.
That's
Yeah, so
awesome.
Rental Law Office and Pix Pub 1 is our sponsor, Pix Pub. And
Awesome.
basically we had a plethora of people. So we had prosecutors, defense attorneys, law enforcement, court deputies. I mean, there was a mix of people.
Fun.
And people from the community. So you kind of see people in that light, and there's other teams that you get to see people. But there's no like actual meet or greet. In a lot of counties, they have meet and greets for attorneys or young professional attorneys or things like that. No real circle, but you see people out.
My God, you do the kickball thing again. That's a sport I think we can handle.
Yeah,
I just would
right?
have to remember all the rules.
Oh, I've got them down. Don't worry. We follow them.
I would also think that you would want to butter up a judge and like do a meet and greet or something just so it like goes in your favor.
I mean, honestly, the judges really shouldn't be basing it on if they like you or
know.
not.
True.
I mean, a lot of the times they could not like you, not like your client, but they're going to follow the law. And there's a
That's
lot
a good
of
judge.
and there's a lot of good judges here, I have to say. In Florida, the judges were very different, very mean to people, like defendants, defense attorneys, prosecutors. It was equal opportunity.
Okay, I know we're getting a little long here, but I got to ask, do you ever have a client that just started yelling at a judge? Because that ain't going to
Ooh.
go well.
Yes, I
Dang.
did.
Did
one
you tell them to
time-
shut up?
Yeah, you try, but at some point, you know, people just
They lose
they
it.
keep going. Yeah, sometimes they just keep going. Yeah, I mean, but nothing happened. I mean, they just were ushered out of the courtroom.
See, now that
Okay.
is the hardest thing. Like, I mean, not that it's not that anybody's considering electing me for a judge, which is a wise move. But whether I know my limits or the rest of the world does,
Yep.
I couldn't handle like
The
if
truth?
somebody did that. Like, I think I can handle being, you know, the one that pays attention to both sides. And see, like Allie, she can't be a judge. She can't even get on a jury because everybody's guilty. Everybody's guilty. I mean, you know, here in the land of the free and the home of the brave, where you go into court, you know, innocent till proven guilty, not in her world.
Right.
But for me, I feel like I could listen.
You didn't get here by accident. I can tell you that much.
See, there it is. Gavel goes down before you even open your mouth. It's like,
Right.
wow, all
But
right,
see,
that was quick. See you
I
at
say
lunch.
innocent unless proven guilty. Until assumes they're going to prove you guilty. Unless, yeah.
Well,
think
all right,
about that.
yeah,
Think
but
about that.
It's another good one. But I feel like I do that. But if somebody started going off at me, I mean, I'd just Hulk out at that point. I'd be, I mean, that would be it.
Rip
I
off the
oh my
robe.
God, the robe comes flying
Yeah.
off. What you gonna do, defendant?
I'll meet you outside.
Oh my God, I don't know that I could take that. And I'm not an aggressive person until somebody comes at me like that, and then I'm like, whoa.
Well, that's human nature, right?
Yeah,
A little
sure.
bit to
A lot of the
like,
times they're not a personal attacks; they're just attacks in general of the case or what happened or what law enforcement did. A lot of the times it's not like anyone's not yelling at the judge specifically.
Yeah, but you got to be able to roll off. I mean, and that's tough. I mean,
Yeah.
that is not easy. I give a lot of credit to judges that do that.
Well,
You
I'm
know,
sure
they
that
can do
happens with you too in your job. When something happens in the courtroom, you probably go back to your client like, what the heck were you thinking? Now I got to yell at you like you're a little
Yeah.
kid.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I try and talk to everybody ahead of time and explain, even like with a jury verdict, even if it doesn't go in your way, the judge is going to remember that in sentencing. So just please behave. Just
Yes.
sit there. We can talk later and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because the judges do remember that. I mean, they're going to remember in sentencing if you're the person screaming at your attorney, screaming at me, screaming at you, and maybe they're not going to give you the minimum because of your behavior in court. You never know. So
Uh-huh.
it's always, good to behave.
Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely.
I feel like there's more eventually that we can come across and find here, and there's going to be more stories that you remember somewhere down the line. We'll have to.
Can
we'll
we
have
have
to do
you
another
back?
round? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I was a prosecutor for about 8 years there. So, and then
Oh,
I
you
was
got
a
stories.
public defender in about 2.5 in Hillsborough, Tampa. So,
Ooh.
I've got quite a few stories for sure.
Oh, that's
Okay,
good.
good.
And I'm trying to think what the next big case might be, because obviously there'll be times that we'll bring you on the show. I mean, you were great with the Diddy thing. There's not much to say about the big case this week. The other one was the Koberger case. He basically just changed his plea. But boy, you can certainly tell the family members of the slain family members that really wanted to see him put to death. I mean, that
Oh, yeah.
reaction definitely came out. I'm trying to think the next big one that's
Is there anything that you know that we should be following?
Not really. I
All right.
mean,
Well, we're going to call you.
Yeah,
When it
well,
comes
yeah,
up-
something-
something will pop. If
Yeah.
there's one guarantee in life, well, besides death and taxes, somebody's going to do something stupid in the entertainment world or around that, and it's going to become a big thing.
Yes.
And we're going to need okay, instead of us just being idiots going, well, this is what should happen.
Well,
So-
even across the country, if there's something else that comes up that's one of those like kind of stupid cases that we just want your input. Now we've got you talk to your clients, you're going to now have us on speed dial. So,
Oh,
definitely.
and listen, real quick as we wrap it up, Allie's overdue for another traffic infringement.
Oh, my
Did you give her
gosh.
your card?
I did.
Okay.
I have not been in court in a long time.
Yeah, like I said, overdue.
Scott goes to court way more than I do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's, I mean, there was a spell, but
Anyway, thank you so much. Make sure you like, share, and follow us. I mean, people have been really loving the podcast lately, and this is just another one that I'm going to be telling everyone you have to
it's great.
have to listen to her.
yeah, you're a lot of fun. We really do appreciate it. I mean, it's funny. You've broken the mold. Attorneys are not all stuffy and crotchety old guys going, well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're good. It's a good time.
we
thank
can have
you.
a good time.
Absolutely.
Thanks
All right,
again.
We will see everyone next week. Thank you very much. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and make sure to be listening to this on your Radio Novo app, which is the app for all the stations that we're on. So download that app. It'll become the Radio Novo app. It's loaded. It's awesome. You will love it.
Well, that was fun. Wasn't that fun? That was fun. Do us a favor, will you? Subscribe. Share the Scott and Alley Not for Air podcast. Touch our buttons. We know you want to.